I'm sitting here in the office of Trent Harris, filmmaker. We're in Salt Lake City. What's the film scene like in Salt Lake City? Is there one?
The film scene?
Yeah.
Well, you're looking at it.
Really?
Yeah. I started making films when I was a kid. I think I've made 300 or 400 films.
Do you still have all that stuff?
Some of it.
You ever think like one day I'm going to just get it all out and edit it into a masterpiece?
I got very interested in documentaries and was lucky enough to work here in Utah at the time. It was an independently owned station, and the family that owned the station had a lot of money and they lived here. So he'd give us these huge budgets. I mean, we could go all over the world to make a local show.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I did Patti Smith, I did the Ramones, I did Timothy Leary, I did Allen Ginsberg, I did motorcycle gangs and missionaries, and I mean, it was really a good experience for about 3 years.
Wow. Let's talk about the Beaver Kid a little bit. The Beaver Trilogy. You're working at Channel 2.
Right.
And you find this
I wander out into the parking lot one day to test out a new video camera.
Which was a brand new thing, right?
Brand new thing. I'd never used one before. So I'm out there in the parking lot. It's huge. The pack is 30 pounds and the camera's another 30 pounds. And I'm holding the mic and I'm just out there trying to figure out how the video camera works, and I see somebody across the parking lot, so I focus in on them. And that turned out to be the Beaver Kid. So the first time you see him is the first time I saw him.
And this kid's coming to try and get on TV.
Yeah, his dream is to get on a program at that time, which was called, what was it called? PM Magazine.
So he came down, you run into him, he runs into you, and you guys have this interaction, which is the first part of the film, Beaver Trilogy,
right.
Which actually was going to be the film, right? I mean, that was, or was it even a film, or were you just shooting stuff?
Well, I knew immediately. I mean, that's the way I always shoot stuff when I'm doing documentaries. It's very easy to tell when something's working and when it isn't, and I knew this was working really well. I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off of him. So I just followed him around the parking lot and filmed it, and I took it in and showed it to some people, and they thought, everybody thought it was neat, but everybody thought, well, we can't do anything with that.
Right. And then this guy keeps contacting you, and
then he contacted me and said he'd set up a talent show and I should come on down.
So did he do the talent show for you, in a sense? Like,
well, yeah, basically. I think he did. I mean, it was not advertised that way, but I think that's what was going on.
Yeah. And you decided to go, and the idea was...
Oh, are you kidding? You couldn't keep me away.
Really?
With an invitation like that.
The last part of the letter, where he says, I'll be at the mortician's.
Yeah.
He's kidding. So they're going to be doing my makeup.
Yeah, it's the only person in town that knew how to do makeup was a mortician.
Well,
I'm amazed that anybody even likes this film. That was
really?
The surprising thing to me, that anyone was even interested in it.
Do you not like it?
Well, I mean, I liked it when I made it, but that was a long time ago, and I've got to admit, I have been absolutely flabbergasted by the amount of attention and amount of screenings this thing gets all over the world, and the people think it's on 10 best lists in London and in Filmmaker magazine and Film Forum magazine, and what was it? The London Guardian said it was one of the 50 great lost masterpieces.
What makes it a masterpiece, or what makes it a great film, isn't just that, though. You know, it's what you did subsequently.
Yeah.
And then the sort of accidental decision, right, to just put them all together.
Yeah, and when you put the three pieces together, it really is a different beast. I mean, the first time I actually hooked the three together and looked at it, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's very strange. I had no idea it would do that. But then I didn't think anybody'd care. You know, I mean, Ruben and Ed, I love that movie, but I haven't watched it for quite a while. And Plan 10 from Outer Space is one of my favorites. I really like that. That's all about Mormonism, actually.
Is it sci-fi?
Yeah, but it's based in everything that I put in there that people think I made up, that they think is science fiction, is actually Mormon doctrine.
Really?
Yeah.
So is it like religious doctrine set sort of played
literally?
Or?
If you look at, if you know anything about Mormon doctrine, for instance, there is a planet called Kolob where God lives. And
really?
Yeah.
God lives on a planet?
Yeah, called Kolob. And the Deseret alphabet is in it, and everything in the movie, practically everything in the movie, comes right out of Mormon doctrine. But if you don't know Mormon doctrine, you think I made it up.
Well, is that?
I can't make that stuff up.
Is Ruben and Ed the film that was banned in Boise?
No, that was Plan 10.
That was okay. So was it banned because of the Mormon content?
Yeah, they thought it was making fun of Mormons, which I wasn't at all. I mean, there's more historically correct content in the movie I made than there is in the one that the Mormons show at their visitor center.
Wow.
By far, by far.
Is there stuff that they're ashamed of?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, you know, they don't like to talk about polygamy. They don't like to talk about some of the doctrine things that are in there because it makes them look silly.
Right. So where did Plan 10, how did that do? Where did that show?
Festivals festivals and around here. And
Ruben and Ed got kind of panned by the critics.
Oh my God. I mean, the critics, it wasn't that they didn't like the movie, it was that they hated the movie.
So they actively hated this movie.
One critic said it was the worst movie of the decade. Another critic said the person that made this should have their driver's license taken away.
What is that going to do?
It was like, and those were the good ones, you know. I mean, it was just insane. I couldn't, you know, part of the thing is it came out the week of the LA riots. And, you know, the city was in a bad mood, and I think that, you know, that people weren't really responding to a film about two Republicans trying to bury a frozen cat in Death Valley. Just didn't seem to strike the right chord.
So, but you told me that because it got panned so much, that has it become... Is it one of your most popular?
In a weird way, yes. I mean, the studios and everybody hated it, so they yanked it.
Was it a studio film?
Yeah, it was a studio film, so they took it off the screen as fast as they could, and then it was released on video, and they sold some videos, and then they took it out of print. So the movie's extremely difficult to get. So what does that mean? That means everybody wants it. If it was easy to get, nobody would care.
Right.
So in a weird way, it's added to its cult status.
So speaking of the studio thing and making these films, you are sort of the definition of an independent filmmaker.
Oh, I don't know about that, but...
Aren't you? You write, produce, direct?
I've heard independent filmmaking defined so many different ways.
Really?
I mean, they call the Sundance is supposed to be for independent films, but you get these huge budgets with movie stars in them. That's what most of them are.
But I think if by definition, independent, really.
Well, if you don't have any money and you make a movie, you're independent.
You're independent. Or you're silly.
You're a little or crazy.
Let's talk a little bit about Sundance.
Mm-hmm.
And what has your experience been with Sundance?
When Sundance began,
it
was a lot different than it is right now. I met George Romero up there. I actually did a little documentary on him.
Of the zombie films?
Yeah, this was in the early days, in the 70s. And I liked him. And in a sad way, and I don't blame this on Redford at all, because it's not his fault, but he started an independent film festival, but in a sad way, it's become an audition to get into Hollywood.
Yeah.
So, you know, young filmmakers around the country are trying to do something that looks like Hollywood so it can premiere there and then they can get their next shot at a movie, which would be a studio movie. And you know, I'm going the other direction. I want to get as far away from the studio as I can. I spent 13 years there getting beat up, and finally they threw me out of the town, basically. I mean, when I left there, my ears were bleeding. I was so angry.
Tell me about this thing you told me that you prefer working with non-actors than actors.
Oh, yeah.
Because, just to say, you know...
Well, you get surprising things out of non-actors. I'll work with anybody who can do the piece.
Sure.
But there aren't that many, you know, movie stars that live in Salt Lake, and I don't want to work with movie stars ever again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like working with French poodles or something. They're always pooping on the carpet and then claiming they didn't do it.
So what's the new film?
The new film's called Delightful Water Universe, and it's a kind of a political thriller that takes place in the future, and it's got a Bigfoot in it.
I heard it's the Bigfoot controls, things are controlled by Bigfoot?
Oh, it's very complicated. I could never get into I mean, you'd never understand it, but he wears a hat made out of a spaghetti strainer with windshield wipers. Actually, the Bigfoot constructs these things so he can control what other people say. It's a silly film on its surface, but the structure is very complicated and very sophisticated, I think, and the message is pretty neat, too.
Well, hey, Trent, thank you for talking to us.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, I love the editing suite. Well, Trent Harris, filmmaker from Salt Lake City, Utah.